Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Spiritual OT channel. Thank you so much for being here for another interview in our series, the Neurodiversity Empowerment Movement. Today, I'm chatting with Rhiannon Crispe, who is the founder and creator of the OT lifestyle movement and has also recently released a fantastic film called Finding Me in OT. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you check that out. So thank you so much for being here, Rhiannon.
Thanks, Steph. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited to dive into some of the topics that we're exploring today.
Thank you. So my first question, I suppose, is to ask a little bit about you and what lights you up and what are your meaningful occupations, I suppose.
Great question. So a little bit about me. So I am an OT. I've been an OT for about 15 years now. I'm also a wife and a mum of two beautiful girls. My lifestyle is very much situated around the ocean. I live by the ocean, and I love running. I love going and immersing myself in the ocean and really living an active lifestyle. I think my lifestyle is very much around my little passion projects that I do. I think I'm fueled by doing meaningful work, as in career orientated, but also outside of what I do as an OT. And I live in New South Wales, in a little regional town. And as you said, I'm the founder of the OT lifestyle movement. So for the last, I'd say 10 years, I've been working as an OT in my own private practice. I've got a mobile OT practice, and I see families, I work with kids and families and see them in the context of their real life and support them to do meaningful work and meaningful activities, whatever that looks like for them. And then in 2020, when COVID hit and the world just went into crisis, I really started reflecting on my journey as an OT. I started seeing a lot of Facebook posts of other OTs feeling burnt out and uninspired and wanting to leave the profession. And I remember reflecting at this time that, there was a time that I was like this. I just really didn't want to do OT anymore. And I think everyone in whatever profession they choose, I think sometimes go through this where you wake up and it feels like Groundhog Day and you don't want to go to work. You're just living for the weekends. You celebrate hump day because you're halfway through the working week. And I was like that. And that was work related, but like in my personal life, I was living the dream. I was so active. I'd changed my whole mindset around what it meant to be healthy. I started eating really well. I was moving my body intentionally and doing things that I loved. I became really interested in personal development and growth. Like, I literally never read a book for the fun of it. And I'd say within a year, I was like book depositories, like best buyer. Like, I'd bought so many books and I just couldn't stop. And I think so many people go through this stage, and sometimes it's at 22 and sometimes it's at 82. But I think we all go on this journey of like growth and development and trying to find out who we are and what we're meant to do. And so in 2020, when I started realizing so many other OTs went through this as well, like this personal identity crisis, or just trying to work out who they are and what they're meant to do with their life, I really wanted to shine a light on this, that they're not alone. And I think the best way to do that is to share your own personal journey. So I started to do that. And then I started to talk about how I found meaning in OT again. And I started interviewing. I started a podcast called the OT Lifestyle Movement Podcast, where I was just having these incredible conversations with OTs from all around the world doing really awesome things that I'd never heard of. So I've learned so much as well, but it's really become a platform to share other OT stories so we can all become inspired by that and think about our own direction. because I really feel like OT is this career that can grow with you. So when I become a mum, I sort of at that same time started working with families. And then I realized like my personal journey and my professional journey sort of started to line up. And I was able to, as I was learning in my own professional life, I was able to integrate that to in my professional life and start teaching what I was learning. And then also integrated the other way, where what I was learning in my professional life, I was able to embody in my personal home life. And I've seriously become a different person because of OT. I've shown up differently. I've raised my kids differently. I think about the world and perceive the world differently. My interactions with people is different. I have more empathy. I'm more curious. I suppose just more careful in what I say and think. Like I just pause before I say things now, whereas previously I think I just was too quick to say things. So it's really shifted my own being and how I show up in the world. And so that's what the OT lifestyle movement sort of stemmed from. And it's a movement for OTs to become their best self. And I really think when we are living our truth and we are in our own authentic self, then we empower other people to do the same. Like we're the lighthouse, we shine a light on what's possible. And then we give our best self to the world too. You know, I think when we're in a job that doesn't serve us, we're drained, we're coming home and we're just, you know, can't get to sleep, because I'd have the notepad by my bed writing down all the things I had to do for the next day. And I think everyone's been there. We're not giving our best selves to the people that we're working with. We're certainly not showing up as our best selves. So, you know, first and foremost, it's like, what are we passionate about? What are our interests? And how can we do more of that in our work? And then the flip side, the other side is then how can we help our clients or the people that we work with live their best life? How can we help them engage in meaningful occupations and do things that bring purpose to their life? So yeah, I mean, like you said, I created the film Finding Me in OT, which has been amazing, and it's premiering at the AOTA Inspire conference, which is like the world's largest.
It's so
bringing
exciting,
together of
Rhiannon.
OTs. And I think, and that's it, you know, it's me just in the midst of 2020 just going, I'm going to create the OT lifestyle movement. You just never know what you're going to create when you step into something. And sometimes it's just like this little knocking at the door. Like for me, it was like this little tap on the shoulder. Like it was probably about a year and a half or 2 years before I even started anything. It was probably about 2018. I was like, oh, I've got this itch. I want to step into this, but I just didn't. Maybe it wasn't the right timing, but you know, when 2020 hit, I was just like, okay, I'm ready now. I've got it. Do you know what? I think, you know, I feel like I'm this vessel where it all comes through me. It's, I feel like if I didn't do this, someone else was going to. And so for me, it has become this platform.
I totally resonate with that feeling of like, I guess just having a higher purpose. Like you've got something to say, you've got something to deliver, and our previous experiences potentially have fueled us to be able to share a lived experience that can assist others. And I was just thinking, it was really interesting what you were saying there about, you know, how we as OTs, because I know you and I practice in a really similar way, very community-based, working with families, very integrative in our approaches. And I think sometimes people don't necessarily understand the full scope of OT, both as OTs themselves, but also as service users and consumers, because I think, you know, sometimes there's still this, if people know what an OT is, there's this idea that we, you know, help with upper limb mobility or, you know, whatever it is. And so, especially working with, particularly the neurodivergent communities, for myself, we're not really looking so much at physical stuff. It's often more psychosocial barriers and stuff like that. So, is there any words of wisdom, I suppose, that you have for people around the scope of OT and what we can really bring to someone's entire life and sort of functioning in a whole?
I love that. I love that question. And it's something that I actually reflect a lot on, because OT is so broad and it's so diverse and there's so much that we can do. And I think that's the beauty of it. And it's also the complexity and the challenge of it.
Yes.
So we as occupational therapists, we work with people to help them participate and engage in meaningful occupations. So what does that mean? If we look at the word occupation, occupation means anything we do that occupies our time. So for many of the people that we work with, it could be, helping them, that they may have, like, where's the barrier or the challenge in their life? It may be that they have challenges getting ready for school in the morning. It may be that they can't get their socks on because they don't feel right. It may be that they're having challenges connecting with themselves, with others, with the earth and the environment. It may be that they have challenges with toileting or even handwriting or so many different things, like literally anything that one person does in their day. If there's a challenge in that area, that is somewhere or something that we can come into and help support them on their journey. And as a mobile occupational therapist, I see families and children in the real life context of their day-to-day life. And I absolutely love this. I remember starting off when I did this and I thought, is this even allowed? Like, is this even OT? Like, this was 10 years ago. And there weren't many mobile practices that I knew of. And I thought, I don't even really know if this is okay to do this. I mean, it seems silly now looking back on it, but it is such an opportunity and privilege to walk into someone's home and see how they live their life. Like the richness of information that I get when I can see someone's house and their home and what their bedroom is like and how the family dynamics and relationships work when they're at home, because it's very different to when someone comes into a clinic.
Absolutely.
In maybe more of a sterile environment, maybe fluorescent lighting, there's lots of other noises and sounds. They're usually not themselves. But if I can go into the home or to the school or to the childcare, and I can really use my OT observational skills to see and pick up like all the different threads of the environment, the interaction, the behaviors, the relational components. It's like no standardized assessment. I tell you now, like you cannot measure it any other way other than what I call it, this immersion. It's like immersing ourselves in this real life context, because really at the end of the day, as occupational therapists, we are focused on real world outcomes. We don't care, like let's say you said like that upper limb or, people who are focused on a particular body part, like that can be very reductionistic, and we're zooming in on a particular part of the body. But we've got to remember OT is so holistic, and the goal isn't to be able to get X degrees of range of movement in the right upper limb. The goal is so that they can hang out their washing and be able to peg it on the line without any pain. That might be their goal. So I think there's a lot of confusion around physical therapy or physiotherapy and OT, and that's the difference. The difference is that we're concerned with doing, we're concerned with the occupation. So I've been talking a lot recently on social media about goal setting, and it comes back to setting goals with our clients. It's this co-creation of creating goals that are meaningful to them. And I can tell you now, no clients ever said to me, I want to get X amount of, degrees of range of motion in my right upper limb. They say, I can't hang the washing out. It's really frustrating. And my husband can't do it for me because he's at work, and I hang out the washing during the day. And, I have this washing line and it doesn't wind up properly. So, and so we start to look at the environmental context, like contextually, that's really important to us.
Yes.
And I think taking this different lens is fundamental to what we do as OTs. So, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but
No, that's really good. I love that. I think it's really shining a light on how it's allowing people, I think, when they access a service or, a professional, it's almost giving people permission to come into it with, it doesn't have to be a medicalized problem. It doesn't have to be, an ailment of the body or anything like that. When they come to us, it can simply be, this is a desire, a wish, a hope, an ambition of mine that I have to achieve something. And then it's this, combining and co-creating, like you said, and I love that word, where we come together and go, well, how can I facilitate and help you to facilitate the achievement of this that you want? And it could be the most, like vast array of different strategies that we can try, or maybe there is equipment we need to put in place, or whatever it is. But like you said, it's about the attainment of a meaningful outcome to the client, that where they can occupy their time doing something that is meaningful. And I was really inspired, particularly by the part of your film that you made, where you talked about the history of OT and really getting back to like the nitty gritty, and how people found that in simply doing, like it wasn't even like, oh, it has to be a productive task or it has to be something, but simply in doing and embodying a certain process of being involved in something, we were healing the body. And I think we forget that sometimes in kind of more modern day OT. It's become a bit more classically medicalized, and stepping back into that, I think, is so beautiful. So I think it's important for people to know, if you're looking to seek out services with an OT, that it's really limitless, what we can support with. Which leads me to another question in regards to, neurodivergent affirming practice is becoming more and more of a thing, and it's really causing us to have to shift out of sort of old paradigms of OT practice, particularly with children who might be autistic or ADHD or whatever it is. Do you have an experience or an event or something that's happened for you that's shifted the way you practice in regards to this process?
I have lots.
Nice.
I've worked with many autistic individuals over the course of my career, and I just learn more and more, and I really feel like I'm the student and I'm the one learning from them. And each time I learn something from someone who is neurodiverse and who thinks differently to how I think, it's another strategy or tool or piece of information that I can use that can also be helpful for someone else that I'm working with. And it's this sharing of knowledge that I found has become really important in the work that I do, because I don't have all the answers. I acknowledge that I do not know it all. I don't want to be seen as the professional that someone comes to me and has all these questions and I'm here to fix them. That's not our role. And in fact, I actually do a lot of parent coaching. So I love coaching. It's a very empowering model where it empowers the families to come up with their own solutions rather than me providing a list of recommendations that they can do, because it's meaningful to them. Can I just pause it? Sorry, can I just pause? I'm going to close this window. Someone's just outside and making some noise. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm back now.
So the parent coaching model is so empowering because it helps people to come up with their own solution. It helps them to remember too, later down the track when they have another problem, that I can solve my own problems. I can try and tackle this myself because I've learned how to. I know that I can do it. I've done it before and I can do it again. I really feel that when we take a cookie cutter approach to therapy and feel like we're the expert and we provide all these recommendations, that it doesn't always fit a person's lifestyle, and no one knows their life as well as they do. You know, we can provide all the recommendations in the world based on clinical studies, based on what we've read in a textbook, based on previous experiences and our own previous clinical observations. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't fit into their life because of X, Y, and Z, a lot of the times they're not even going to try the recommendation. They're not even going to try the strategy because they're like, I don't have enough time for that. My child will never do that. That's not going to work. But if we help them develop these problem-solving skills, they really, and they're an active participant. And that's what I love about this model, is that they're an active participant. They're not passive in the therapy process, just waiting to receive therapy. They are engaged in it. It changes everything. It changes everything. It changes it from a model of dependency to a model of dignity. And it gives people the dignity,
I love that.
To solve their own problems and to move forward in life. So if I'm to think of stories that has really changed and shaped the way I practice, I remember when I was working up in the Northern Territory, and I was working with a family. It was a mum, a dad, and a little boy, and they came from another country, from a non-English speaking background, and he was just recently diagnosed with autism. Mum had no idea about it, and was told by the medical practitioner, by the doctor, that your child will never learn to talk. Your child will not interact with other children how other kids interact. They're going to find life hard, and really painted this doom and gloom prognosis for the child. And he's 3. Yeah. And he did have challenges. He did have difficulties interacting with others and the world around him. He his interest was spinning. He'd spin constantly, that would make anyone else dizzy and sick. He'd love rocking in the chair and really getting that deep proprioceptive input, smashing his head against the couch. He didn't have much, I don't think he had any like meaningful communication. He would sing some songs, but Mum knew there was a difference there. But this picture of him not being able to do all the other things that other kids would be able to do was absolutely soul destroying. And you can imagine, as a parent receiving this, it still gives me goosebumps today. Yeah. And I remember starting to work with her, and I took this parent coaching approach because I was only seeing them for 1 hour once a week. And it's such a snapshot in time. I was like, what can I do in 1 hour once a week? That Mum had so many different goals that she wanted to work on. And so I took this parent coaching approach of empowering her, and we went through the goals, and we went through, okay, what can we do this week to work towards this goal? Because the magic happens at home. Like, Mum is with this child 24/7. So 100%. Me coming in for an hour and doing something and not relaying any information or passing anything on doesn't help enormously. So it was a lot of floor time based play with Mum and the child, and teaching and educating. It was all this beautiful integration. And I remember Mum telling me, it was probably a month or so after we started working together, she said, Rhiannon, you've given me one thing that no one else has. And I remember thinking, I wonder what that is. Like, what what have I given you? Like I didn't feel like I was doing anything special. I just really felt like I was doing what was needed. And she said, you've given me hope. And I remember in that moment just thinking how important it is never to put a cap on someone's potential, never to limit someone's potential, because we have absolutely no idea
Yes.
of their innate potential. And the unfortunate thing is when parents get given a diagnosis and are told your child will never be able to talk, they won't be able to interact with others, they won't be able to toilet independently, they won't be able to get a job, they won't be able to form relationships when they're older. You know, they're given this doom and gloom narrative from diagnosis day. And this can unfortunately become this self-fulfilling prophecy where parents think, oh, okay, well, my child will never be able to do that. So they never strive for that. And there is no hope. There is this ceiling. They put a ceiling on their child's potential and they will only work towards that. And I think it's so necessary and so needed for health professionals to come in and to shine a light on possibility and to document hope. There's actually this really great project over in America called Documenting Hope. But, you know, I would film the child doing activities at the start, and then I'd film it, you know, ongoing over the months that we were working together. And I'd show mum, I'd be like, look at this, you know, we're seeing improvement. Because I really feel we forget how far we come in short periods of time. We forget how difficult it was. And then, okay, now how is it going now? So documenting that through video can be a really powerful way. And I'm doing that at the moment, actually, with another child that I'm working with who's blind and deaf. And I said, Mum, you know, is it okay if I start filming some of this? Because I want you to see the progress, because we forget how hard and how challenging and how heartbroken we are at the start of sometimes that therapy journey, to doing these things. But the goals, you know, they may not be like these big goals. It may be just something really small.
Yes.
And you know, once they achieve that, we're on to the next goal, but we don't celebrate the wins. Like we forget to celebrate those things. And I think if we can see for ourselves visually the before and after, it does give us that hope. It gives us that injection of this is possible, and I'm going to strive for more than what the prognosis was or what the doctors said about my child, because I believe that it's possible.
I love that. I think that's a really great thing too, that even parents can just be doing for themselves as their work, you know, as their child is developing. You know, I think a lot of us, obviously, we take videos of our children and photos and stuff, but I think if you have that conscious awareness that you want to reflect back on progress that you've made by taking little snippets here and there, it gives you a benchmark, I suppose, to be able to track that. And I agree so much with what you say about the parent coaching model. It is such a passion of mine now. And I feel like it really is that empowerment model. It is exactly like you said. I wrote it down from dependency to dignity. And I think that is such a beautiful directional kind of example, which I think is just so powerful. So thank you for sharing that example. I got goosebumps everywhere when you said about Mum said you've given me hope, because I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can help someone find is to have hope. So that's amazing. I did want to ask you too, because obviously I'm quite passionate about this, but about the element of spirituality in occupational therapy. I feel like it's a part of OT that gets forgotten about a little bit. And interestingly enough, you know, if we reflect back on some of the models we might have learned at uni, like the CMOP-E, spirituality is actually a component in the model. And yet I feel like sometimes it's just being a little bit left out, or it's not being addressed. And I know that, you know, I listen to the way you talk about knowingness and intuition and all these beautiful parts of humanness. And I just love if you can expand a little bit on how you feel that spirituality ties in with occupational therapy.
This is another little passion area of mine, sort of diving deeper into this rabbit hole. I think, first of all, we need to look at spirituality and work out what that means. And it really goes beyond religion. I think so many people can relate it to religion, but it's more expansive than that. It is, or how I see it, is living a life of meaning and purpose. And really, I mean, like, how is what we do not spiritual at its core? If spirituality is helping or is living a life of meaning and purpose, and as occupational therapists, we help people to engage in meaningful occupations and purposeful occupations, then I really believe at the core of OT is spirituality. Like it's like intertwined, it's inextricably linked. It's not like an additional component, like let's focus on your spirituality at the moment. And it can sort of be that if we're looking at spiritual practices, like we want to look into prayer or meditation or immersion in nature.
Yeah.
But at its core, I feel that OT is a spiritual therapy. I really feel that. It's interesting. I saw the other day on a Facebook post. I don't know if you saw it. It was in one of the bigger groups. And someone had shared a post of this lady who had lost the use of her arms. And I think that happened like many years ago when she's 17, and now she's a lot older in life. And she said she was so grateful for her occupational therapist for teaching her that life, being an artist, was more than using her hands. So she couldn't use her hands to paint anymore. And so the OT had taught her how to hold a paintbrush in her mouth between her teeth to paint on this beautiful canvas. And in that moment of reading that and seeing that, it's just this beautiful reminder of the work that we can do. And that in itself is spiritual, is connecting to meaning and purpose in your life through occupation.
Yes.
So through this meaningful occupation of painting, and, this lady could no longer use her arms. She could no longer do the thing that brought meaning to her life, that was, brought joy to her life. And then it was us, an occupational therapist somewhere out there in the world has said, there's another way that you can do this. And through our understanding of the person, of biology, of the environment, of the occupation, we were able to work out how she could do it. And, I'm sure there's much more to it than just putting the paintbrush in between the teeth. It would have been a lot of practice of how am I going to do this in a way, that I like the painting, and, it wouldn't have been easy. So that whole process through therapy, I can just imagine would have just been such a spiritual journey on its own. So I think, even working as an OT with children, how do we work with kids in spirituality? Many of the kids that I work with, like I said, are autistic, and they do a lot of masking, particularly the girls, and they'll show up in different environments and they're not themselves because they have this deep desire to fit in, or to not stand out, or to not look different.
Yeah.
And this masking is going to block them spiritually. It's going to block their authenticity. And when you're not authentic, that whole journey of who am I and what am I here for? And, it becomes so much harder. So as an OT, we can work on identity. We can work on self-awareness and self-compassion and so many things that help bring a person home to themselves. And I think where we get stuck sometimes as occupational therapists is that we feel like what we're doing, anyone can do, because from the untrained eye who's looking at us going, oh, you're just doing a painting, or you're just going for a walk around the block and smelling some flowers, or you're just doing Lego. Like, I can do that with this child. Like, that's not therapy. Like, it's all the subtleties that we bring to our therapy. It's the co-regulation. It's this dance of relationship. It's the listening. It's the curiosity. It's the questions that we ask. It's these soft skills that we need to embody as therapists that help the therapy process. These are our true gifts as OTs, and they are often, they're not visible to the eye. You know, it's not something that we can whip out of our toolbox and go, this is the tool to help you solve your problem.
Yeah.
It's who we are. It's our personal philosophy. You know, it's not just something professional that we've learned and we try and integrate. It's who we are as a being, how we show up in the world, and then how we support other people to be authentic, and then obviously to engage in those meaningful occupations. So spirituality again ties into that, and it's not something that you can unlink. It's so coupled, it's so integrated that, you know, it is who we are. And
I completely agree.
Beautiful
I
process.
think you've summed that up so beautifully. And I love the fact that you mentioned about, you know, people who are autistic and the masking process, and how that does block that sense of authenticity, which then links back to that unique expression that brings us our meaning and our purpose. And I think even for, you know, people who are late diagnosed as neurodivergent, who have gone through a lot of their adult life too, trying to mask or fit in an environment that they haven't felt quite suited them or didn't feel comfortable. One of my, you know, real passions in our work is helping people to go through this process of unmasking and getting back to who they are and what, you know, what is their purpose, what feels aligned with them as a person, even if it doesn't link or connect perfectly with stereotypes or social norms or, you know, whatever it is going on around them. So I think you're absolutely right that spirituality, whether you want to use that word or whether, you know, however you want to define it, for both of us anyway, is embedded in the work that we do every day. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, 100%.
Is there anything else on this topic in particular that you wanted to share or to help raise awareness of, I suppose, this much needed, you know, neurodiversity affirming movement, or spirituality in OT, or your passion for helping OTs themselves to sort of step into that space of self-acceptance and moving away from, I guess, our imposter syndrome?
Oh gosh, I could talk for days. How long have you got?
Maybe we have to do another episode on imposter
2.
syndrome.
I know. There's a lot. And, you know, I think as occupational therapists, when we're working with people, just to remember what a privilege it is to walk into someone's life and to help them on their journey. Because I know when we're on the other end of that, like I think when my nana was in hospital and she needed care, you always hope that when your loved ones are really in need and need the care, some sort of care, that they're treated in a respectful way. Their stories are listened to. They feel heard, and I think sometimes when I go back to that time in my OT journey where it was just the monotony of the daily grind, I think we forget about that sometimes. I feel like we're just going to work and we're, how many clients or patients on our list today, and just going in and seeing them and doing our recommendations, and it just doesn't become meaningful to us anymore. And if that's the case, then we need to reassess it, and we need to remember that we're working with people in a really vulnerable part of their lives, and they're sharing their vulnerabilities with us, they're sharing their challenges with us, and that's not easy. And if we really want to make a difference, the more we can be open, the more we can hold space for someone else, the more they're going to trust us, and the bigger the impact we can create, because they're going to share pieces of themselves with you that they haven't shared with anyone else. I recently, I'm working with another family, and they come from a non-English speaking background. I think it's from India or Sri Lanka, and they do things differently over there. And we were working on toileting with this girl. She's 4, and I just assumed that mum knew how to go to the toilet and how to wipe. I didn't for one moment think that she did it differently, and didn't use toilet paper, and they use water. And again, it just caught me in my own traps, my own belief systems of, like, I'm just bringing my assumptions to this session, and I didn't have the curiosity. I didn't inquire enough. I didn't ask enough questions. I just assumed. And she asked me, she said, Rhiannon, I don't feel comfortable asking anyone else this, like none of the parents in my parent group or the teachers at kindy, but I feel safe asking you. She said, how do we use the toilet paper? How do I help my daughter to toilet how you do here in Australia? And I just was taken back, and I've got goosebumps again, because, after 15 years of practicing as an OT, I'm still learning, and I still get it wrong. And I still, I'm still trying to be better at this. But
what an amazing thing you did right for her to feel comfortable to ask you that.
Because it was a big thing for her. She felt like embarrassed, so embarrassed, and maybe some shame around not knowing how to wipe your bottom, and so this is the power and potential of OT. When we can hold space for people, when we can build this trust, they can ask us, what they might think is a really silly question. And I hope that when we are in a point in our lives when we need this space held for us, that we are working with someone who too can reciprocate this and hold that space for us, or for our daughter, or for our mum, or for our uncle, or whoever it is that's going on this journey through life. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all in this experience together. And I really believe, like, beyond interconnectedness, we're all interdependent. Like, we all depend on each other. We cannot survive by ourselves. We really rely on each other to get through this life together. So, I think, to answer your question, I really feel like even beyond like the neurodiversity movement, because that focuses on the difference in brain function, we need to go beyond and look at like the difference in belief systems, like, and understand, yes, everyone does function differently and think differently, and it changes the way we perceive the world and feel the world and behave in the world. But also, like, at a deeper level is like what you believe, because what you believe also changes and shapes who you are as a person. And what we believe is shaped by the media. It's shaped by the people that we hang out with. It's shaped by our childhood experiences. And if we don't understand someone else's belief systems and value and respect that, and also have this ability to hold opposing tensions. So if my belief system doesn't align with someone else's that I'm working with, like, how do I navigate that? How do I hold this space? Because how many times do we work with someone and we're like, I really don't believe you should be doing this as a parent. You know, like our belief systems are so different. You're like, oh gosh, that's not right. That's not the right way you should be doing it. It's like, okay, maybe it's not, but how do I work through that with this person? How do I approach this in the right way? Or can I ask some questions? And this is where that parent coaching model is really important, because we get to ask questions rather than saying that's not how you should parent. It's like, okay, that's interesting why you do that. Tell me a bit more about why. Well, I smack my child because I get so frustrated and I just can't deal with it anymore. And I've got to get out the door. I'm running late to work every single day. And when we start to peel back and uncover the layers of why people do things, instead of just saying, oh, you know, you shouldn't smack, we get to understand what's really going on. And that's the deep work that we can help at, because the issue maybe isn't that they're smacking, but they're so stressed out and all the extra pressures. Maybe if we help alleviate some of this, some of those behaviors aren't going to eventuate, because we've dealt with it at the roots level. And working on mom and regulating her nervous system and coming up with better routines and rituals. But we've planted the seed. Like, I think it's about planting the seed in coaching, and then they come up with the ideas. It's not us telling them what they can do or what they should do, because we know as soon as someone tells you what to do, it becomes hard work, right?
Yeah.
But if you come up with the ideas yourself, it is very empowering. If you have a coach in your corner, like an occupational therapist, who can guide you, who can help with that accountability, who can troubleshoot all the obstacles that come your way. So understanding belief systems, why people do the things that they do, and supporting them through that journey rather than righting or wronging things, because you know, they'll just go, oh, that OT wasn't right for me, I'm not going to work with them anymore, because they didn't understand me. And I think that's what we need to do, is that understanding with our minds and also understanding with our hearts.
That is so powerful. I resonate so much with everything you've said. And I absolutely love listening to you. I love listening to your perceptions of things. And I think you have such a beautiful way of communicating these ideas. I do think it's so powerful. So I 100% believe that you are a vessel for this, stuff that you're putting out there. And I honestly feel like I could just listen to you talk all day. So
Can
I
I
can't
just say,
thank you
Steph,
enough.
just for everyone who's listening to this, like, it's taken me a long time to be able to use my voice. I found it very, very hard. I used to have another podcast, and I'd cringe. I'd listen back to what I'd said. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I cannot post that. That is terrible. And I think it's like the medicine for me has really been in actually using my voice. And sometimes the medicine is in doing the hard things and in doing things that challenge us, like the occupations that challenge us. I still don't like listening to myself. I still cringe, but the importance of me getting work out there and getting a message out there is more important than the cringe factor, I suppose. So anyone who's out there listening, just start, you know, have the courage to just start, because when you just start, you know, doors open. And that's me with the OT lifestyle movement. I just started, and I started with the podcast, and then I created a film, and now I've got a book. It's a free ebook on the website, which is theotlifestylemovement.com. And it's called the OT Collective, of a beautiful collection of OTs who share their stories. And it's all come from just deciding that I wanted to step into this space. So whatever it is, wherever your heart feels drawn to go to, wherever you have this small tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you know, and the tap doesn't go away and you can't get rid of the feeling or the idea, just follow that curiosity. And it's in that following of curiosity that different things present themselves to you. And that's where you start to live and lean into the life that you love.
That is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a really important message. And yeah, thank you again so much for being here today. It's such a pleasure and an honor, and I really hope if you're listening to this, you should definitely go and check out Rhiannon's film. It's beautiful. And also, if you're an OT listening to this, Rhiannon has the OT Wellbeing Summit, which is available through her website as well. And I did the summit and I loved it. It fed me so much juicy info and inspiration for my career. So definitely go and check that out. But thank you so much, Rhiannon. We love you and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Steph.